Cybersecurity is entering new era where software won't just detect and alert, it will decide and act. Agentic AI will automatically investigate, containment, remediation, and in wrong hands, it will automate institution deception and lateral movement. Regulated industries are scaling digital transformation while staying accountable to GXPs, audit trails, data integrity, compliance. The cyber landscape is changing from human paced attacks to machine paced campaigns. The winners will be organizations that prove control just deploy tools. Today, we are joined by Sandeep Bansal, CIO, transformation leader for regulated industries, who has delivered measurable outcomes, OPEX reduction, fewer incidents, delivered value, and brings a governance first lens on scaling AI safety. Before we dive into the topic, let's have a small video about Power of Knowing Forum. Welcome to Power of Nine Forum's weekly podcast series. Let's welcome the esteemed guest to the podcast and dive into the topic. Sir, good evening. Welcome to our podcast, sir. How are you doing today?
Good evening, Mr. Prem. I'm doing good. How about you?
Good, sir. Sir, you've been in the session for the second time. I think thank you for being here. And a small intro about yourself, your journey to the audience, sir.
So, Mr. Prem, I started my career 30 years back from the end user computing, moving from end user computing to managing IT infrastructure and then digital transformation. Uh, the scale has been changing time to time. There has been new tools coming into the ecosystem, and we have to push our boundaries to learn new tools and ensure our enterprises are secure, operational efficient, and they can get the real ROI what they are spending on the infrastructure or ecosystem. I am Sandeep Bansal. I have been working in various industries from higher education, manufacturing, ITITS. I worked on oil and gases, so highly regulated industries to the partner ecosystem, where I have designed solution from conceptualization till delivery, ensuring the success matrix and the outcome based results driven for the organization. Because today, transformation or the technology landscape is increasing day by day. Organizations are spending a lot of money. As a CIO, our responsibility is to make them secure and get the real realization of money spent by the organization.
Thank you for that, sir. Let's dive into the topic, sir. When AI becomes an actor in cyber, not just an assignment, what changes first, sir?
So, when AI becomes actor, the changes is like you never know what is going to come, because the autonomous AI has given a freedom to the agents to react and act. And what is important here is to safeguard our guardrails and keeping the human in loop.
What you are saying is keep the human in loop, which is very important, is what you are saying. What does agentic AI change in cybersecurity compared to traditional automation?
So agentic AI moves us from automation that execute task to system that decide and act. The traditional SOAR follows predefined playbooks. Agentic AI dynamically plans, execute, and adapts across the multiple tools. So basically, it doesn't have any playbook. It acts as per its own thought process, and it acts require to be monitored, which is basically more important. So automation was one thing, but automation with agentic actions are real threat.
Sir, where does it break first in enterprise? Identity, data quality, progress or process gaps or governance?
Identity and governance, because enterprises are not designed for non-human actors making decisions at scale. We are living in a world where for everything we have to take a permission, right?
Yeah.
So we know the red tape culture we have been working into. Enterprises have not even adopted those kind of ecosystem where a human can also do some activity on his own by taking a right decision, wrong decision. So I feel identity and governance is very, very important here, and for this kind of situation.
So what you are saying is define agentic AI is plain terms a system that plans, execute multiple step actions, contact with SOAR or automation, emphasize blast radius and control boundaries is what you are saying. And the moment AI acts, your security model levels up from alerts to control is what you are saying, right, sir? Now,
Right.
how attackers use agentic AI differently than defenders? What is the asymmetric key here, sir?
So attacker gains speed by using scale and personalization, and defenders are constrained by controls, approvals, and legacy processes. So what I am trying to say, and defenders, we have lot of legacy systems, legacy processes, shadow AI. We have a lot of approvals through which we have to go through without before taking any decision. So we are having those controls, approvals in place. Whereas for the attackers, they have the speed, scale, and personalization, which is actually both are opposite to each other.
It's an opposition that we are having to have something that blocks is what you are saying. Now,
Right.
what or which attacks get supercharged? Phishing at scale, deepfake impressions, impersonation, exploit chaining, or privilege access is escalation, privilege escalation. What is that you think that are the
So
supercharged ones?
phishing plus deep fake impersonation plus automated recon all become hyper personalized and continuous, because you see it works in a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, and when it is automated, you don't have a control on it. So these attacks are supercharged than any other thing which we were having in previous time, because they used to activate after some activity,
Hmm.
but here it is not like that.
Okay. So, what is the first defense move leaders must make to reduce attackers' advantage?
So I feel for a defense, leader should create a hardening of identity,
Hmm.
and they should have approval gates for sensitive actions, which I said human in loop. So when AI is also performing some action, that should require somebody to prove it. Otherwise, it will become endless. And in many cases, it has been seen when AI can do the reverse engineering and stop the entire application or the process. That can be a business loss.
Yeah. So, yeah, when it is not monitored or it is given more privileges, the it can override the system is what you are saying, and the approvals can take we are talking about speed, scale, and personalization, right? So in
Right.
that says make it executive friendly rather than giving them over privileges, and it can create business loss, as you said. Attack cost drops because attack volumes rise. Point to identifying, hardening, and approval gates is what you're saying. AI doesn't just raise risks, it drops the cost of crime also, is what you're saying, sir. Now in regulated industries, right, where what is the AI security compliance collision leaders must anticipate?
So if you see, the compliance is about proof, okay,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it is not about the intent. You are doing what you are doing, but if there is no evidence, there is no proof, right? Compliance
Yeah.
doesn't agree to it. So agentic AI challenges traceability and validation. So if some activity is happening, do we have those traceability? What kind of action has been taken by the agentic AI? Are there validation approvals who are in progress?
Hmm.
There are certain agentic AI tools or AI which should know, or they should rather give a reason behind why they have taken this action. So those things are very very important. So when we are using any model, it should be that much mature that AI agents should also know what they are doing and why they are doing. So that is what is very very important in regulatory industry, I believe.
Okay. That's what compliance obligations become harder: audit trails, change control, validation, data integrity, or access controls?
In this case, I believe the audit trail validation and change control becomes complex when decisions are dynamic. So here, if the decisions are based on certain, as I said, there is no playbook for agentic AI, right? If you have certain SOPs, why it is happening, what you are doing, you and I have been working into the data centers where we need to follow certain processes to do the prescribed activity, right? And in many cases, the logs are missing, audit trails are missing. But here, when you are going for a regulated industry, you cannot avoid audit trails. Say,
Hmm.
banking, you go towards the pharmaceutical industry, you go to the healthcare industry. So, audit trails, validation, and change control is become very, very complex when decisions are dynamic because you don't know from where what is happening, and then you have to collate and create the report. That also become a very humongous.
Okay. So what you are saying is frame compliance, right? Proof mentioned, validation mindset, documentation controls, traceability, approvals, and immutable logs is what we want to keep it so that it is there. What does zero trust become when non-human identities, agents, start operating tools? Because what we are also looking at having AI agentic tools running as some of the uh, processes, right? So your take on it, sir.
So agents must be treated as high-speed privileged identities because they have those much privileges which a human may not be having. So we need to understand, some at some point of time, if we are going to use agents, the zero trust will somewhere get obsolete because these are high-speed privileged identities and they work in their own autonomous ecosystem.
Should agents have independent identities or operate under delegation or constrained identity? Because we spoke something right now is if it is given over privilege, there could be business loss. So your take on this point, sir.
It should be delegated considered identities because it is like you have a security guard,
Hmm.
you have a trust on him and you provide him all the identities and everything, and tomorrow he do some kind of activity which can be risky for the business, then whom you are going to blame? So I believe agents where you don't, you are putting them to safeguard your ecosystem, monitor your security landscape. The delegation needs to be with the constrained identities as we have been given to any of our team members. Those are working with us. So I believe they should be basically a kind of a co-pilot, as we say, or assistant to us, rather than they are a decision maker.
Okay. What is the, when you say they should be delegated, what is the minimum least privileges pattern you recommend for agents permissions?
Now, in case of human, we have certain parameters like the credentials needs to be changed after
Hmm.
15 days, 1 month, all those things. And as a human, we know what we are doing. If there is some outsider or maybe a invader or a hacker who has entered into my ecosystem, I will be able to understand. But just
Hmm.
imagine if a hacker has hacked your own agent, so how you are going to control it? And agent has already been hacked, so he is not
Yeah,
aware of it, right? He has been taken over. So I believe the short-lived credentials, scoped permissions, action allow list, step up approvals. So these things to be there, so that if your agent is doing something notorious or you feel it is not going into the right way, you can stop its credentials or you can stop its permissions.
got it, sir. So what you are saying is keep that as practical. Scope tokens are clearly defined in what they are supposed to do with the permissions. Uh, Short-lived credentials, because what we are saying is kind of just-in-time access or credentials which expire in few days. That's what in action allow list set up approval for sensitive actions is what you are saying. Now, how will SOC operations change when agentic AI becomes the first responder?
So SOC evolves from manual trials to AI first response orchestration. And definitely, when there is an action taken by the AI agent, the team, those are working over there. This is where I was talking about that we should have a human in loop or human on the loop. That
Hmm.
he should be having a visibility what kind of action being taken by the agent and what is happening around it. I mean to say, for example, I have given offloaded my job to one of my assistant. It doesn't mean that I will not going to overlook the assistant,
Yeah.
and I'll give him the autonomy to do all those activity. So, say for example, somebody is coming to my office and he wants some files to be signed, and I ask my assistant to verify it, but I have
Hmm.
asked him to verify, not to sign it. So he will
Okay.
verify and come to me. So something like that, I believe the SOAP needs to evolve from manual trials to AI first response orchestration.
Got it, sir. Now, what must never be fully autonomous without human?
That's a very good question, actually. So, business impact containment, identity revocation, production shutdown, updates of various
Hmm.
application, because we have been taught or learned in our experience, any new updates are coming, first test it and then upgrade it, because
Yeah.
many times it doesn't work. So I believe when you're running the automation, you should know those kind of similar kind of practices we should do. But for example, if I am asking for identity revocation, now there should be some stage when human is asking for revocation of identity. System should not automatically revocating any identity to the people, and any containment which can impact the entire business, that should not be automated, and production cannot be shut down by the automation.
Yeah. So what we are saying is we should give a staged model, assist, recommend, and execute with approval, because without having a human in loop can be a challenge is what you are saying. Limited autonomy, emphasize kill switch and escalation rules is what you're saying. In future SOCs, what we see is it's not the bigger teams, it's the smarter autonomy with hard breaks, because somewhere you need to cut means you need to cut, and those breaks has to be applied by the human is what you're saying.
Yeah.
What can go wrong? Prompt injection, tool misuse, false commitment, data leakage, or runaway remediation. What could go wrong, sir, in the prompt?
Prompt injection, tool misuse, and fast containment, runaway remediation, right? So what we are trying to do, if all these things are being automated, the business can come to an halt,
Yeah.
because you will not be able to understand what has happened and how it has been done. So as we were talking about, there should be a trail, what action being taken by the agent, why it has been taken, right? And the final approval should come to the human to take that action.
So what you are saying is whether you give autonomy or thing, but the guardrail should say that it has to go for an approval with a human is what you are saying, and
Absolutely.
that's the process where you can put brakes is what you are saying, right?
Right.
So what guardrails reduce blast radius that is fastest?
So in my view, to reduce the guardrails which is required here is sandboxing,
Hmm.
getting rollback mechanism, deterministic validation. So these are the four kind of guardrails which can reduce the blast radius as the fastest. Because if we have kept all this thing in hand, if we see something has happened, there should be some rollback mechanism. As I told you, the AI model or the agent what we are using, he should know what he's doing and why he's doing.
Yeah.
If something has happened, he should be able to give the answer. So as we say in the human nature, you are responsible to do this activity. When you are responsible, you are answerable as well.
Yeah.
Similarly, agent has to be answerable, that he should know what he's doing and why he's doing. And if you are not getting the response, we should have that tool to roll back the access or the action taken by the agent.
Got it, sir. So what you are saying is stay outcome based, gating, sandboxing is as you rightly said, deterministic validation, logging, monitoring, and important is the rollback if you are able to see if there's an issue. That's the major pointer that we are looking is what you are saying. The biggest AI risk is not errors, it is automation errors is what we are saying. So
Right.
how do you secure a two layer API connectors, RPA, cloud controls that agents use? Because everything is integrated right now. How do you look at controlling that layers or securing that layer?
So, Mr. Prem, there is very important thing which we need to understand. The APIs which we have been using for years, which has been developed in our ecosystem, it has to be replaced with the orchestration layer, which itself has some kind of security inbuilt in.
Hmm.
Open APIs are nowadays very challenging. Even the hackers can enter anything which is connected to your network, so it is not secure. So I think agents don't hack system; they use legitimate tools dangerously fast to enter to your ecosystem. We need to have the validations, the tools what we are having in the current there is a very important thing which I talk about many times. It is important when we are bringing up new application, new tool, or new processes in our transformation journey. Definitely, these are required to scale up our operation, improve the efficiency, but it is also important we should evaluate our current architecture, where we are going to put it, what is going to be the fitment, and what are the weak points. So, this is where the governance is required. In many cases, we see the governance has been taken as it's slower the speed of deployment, or reduce the speed to go to market. But however, if you are not going to do those cross validation, the chances or the risk increases. So the development team wants or the business wants faster outcome, but that's the reason sometimes we ignore the governance. However, it is very, very important to governance to be in the loop, and that is where these API connectors, RPA tool, cloud control, whatever we are bringing in, we need a governance practices in place to validate what we are using, why you are using.
Now we are talking about APIs and stuff. What controls belong to the tool gateway, allow list, policy checks, content filter, or rate limits? What two controls belong to these pointers?
So allow list, policy checks, rate limits, and content filters. All these four are belongs to the tool gateway,
Hmm.
because when somebody is trying to access your ecosystem, they should have the access before they enter. So this is when you talk about role-based access control, right? So you have allowed the person, then only he can enter. Then there
Yeah,
is the policies, right? Those policies are in place when he's doing activity on your ecosystem. What, how many times he can enter? If it is an agent, if it is doing a kind of blasting to your system, he's just entering by any time. Just giving you an example, if somebody is entering to the bank, a human, for multiple times, it becomes
hmm,
suspicious. So
yeah.
those kind of activity becomes suspicious, and our tools, observability tool or traceability tool, should be notifying us that some kind of activity is happening. Content filter is very, very important. We have been talking about DLP for so many time.
Yeah.
So I believe these four things are very important controls at the tool gateway.
How do we prevent an agent becoming an automation backdoor, sir?
So it all depends upon the tool permission. You have a backdoor in your house, you know who can enter, who cannot enter. If you are doing an automation, doesn't mean that you give him the all the authorities, right? And then there should be policies as code enforcement, right? So the policy should not be just a paperwork, because when you are bringing the automation, so policy as code needs to be enforced so that they knows this you cannot do.
So what you are saying is emphasize on tool access equals power is what you are saying. Recommend explicit tool permissions and policy as a code checks, right? Because once a policy is defined, the checks also has to be done based on the changes that the policy also goes down, right? And
Right.
AI don't hack systems; they use permitted tools dangerously fast. Is what we are saying. Sorry. How should leaders think about data exposure when agents operate across email, documents, ERP, and customer systems?
So AI risk is fundamentally a data governance problem actually. For AI, data is fuel. And
Hmm.
in the past, we used to have data in our storages and we used to call them when it is required.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it is kind of a nervous system where you keep your data, and the data needs to flow in the entire system across the board. So I believe if we are talking about the data exposure, it is about the governance, because this data is required if you are running your LLM or SLM in your ecosystem. If you are not going to give the data, it will not be able to answer. Now, what data we need to provide, so that is to be defined at the governance layer, level. Now, when we talk about the governance, leader need to understand that every data owner to be part of that governance board. They know what data they can provide, what data they cannot provide. Say, for example, business may ask you to provide some financial data they require for their client. However, the finance says this data is we cannot expose to somebody else. So both the parties, both the functions are required to be part of this governance board, and they should be able to set a right governance practices.
So, what uh, are the top leak paths? Prompts, memories, logs, tool outputs, or vendor telemetry, sir?
So if I see all are the leakage paths, so
Okay.
prompt memory, logs, tool output, and vendor telemetry, because anything can drive information out of your ecosystem,
Yeah.
and it cannot be controlled without the right governance practices. What you can do, what you cannot do, it is to be defined.
So you are saying the boundaries have to be set for each of the
Yes,
pointer, and
absolutely.
what minimum data governance control should be in place before we scale, because as we scale we cannot fix something, right? Once you are scaling you need to fix something with a data governance. Your take on it.
So, Prem, I'll give you a very good example. In
Yeah.
most of the organization where we have been working or we have worked, if you see, uh, we have moved from digitization to digitalization, from there to digital transformation. Now we are entering into the AI autonomous world. From digitization to digitalization, when we moved, we did some data classification, we created some master data, we created some kind of defining
Unique.
what data is and how we can work on. I still remember we used to have unique code for every data entry, and that unique code is binded with to create the relationship between the tables. But today the system has become very smart. It doesn't require that kind of codes, because it was very difficult to remember the code, and the things are becoming more smarter. Going ahead now, the classification of data, DLP, read action, compartmentalizations, and retention policies. These are the minimum control we require, because what kind of data is we are using, where it can be used, how it can be used, everything needs to be very, very clear and defined. So there cannot be one thing; it has to be mix of multiple things.
Mix of all, right? So what
Yes,
you are saying also is mention classification, and you spoke about DLP, which we've been using, right, where we
right.
are looking at re-education is there, retention is there, and then uh, compartmentalization is what you also said, where you'll have to bring out some of the pointers which have to be segregated, right? So tie everything to a brand, tie it to a risk is what you're saying. When you are not tying it to a risk, you're not looking at how it can impact. If you tie it to a risk, brand value and business, I think that's where you get the maximum value for the control that you're trying to look at. Your AI programs are only safe as your data discipline is. You told data has to be fed into the AI system. That's more important. What should the board and CXO's dashboard look like for agentic AI cyber risk?
I think when you talk about the board, board doesn't need AI metrics actually. They need
Okay.
control and resilience metrics. What
Mm.
kind of control is happening, what kind of resilience you have kept in. Very simplest of example. In my If my boss has given me two or three assistants,
Mm.
do he require what they are doing it? Then it becomes a kind of observing to the ground level, right?
Kind
Deep
of
diving
microman.
each and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
micromanaging, you can say that way, right? So what they need is what the controls you have kept in, what kind of resilience matrix you have controlled, are the KRAs are clear, KPIs are clear. That's it,
Mm.
which is required at the CXO and board level. If board and CXO goes into those kind of small things, I believe that is not their role, because it is not about one agent. You are going to put hundreds of agents in your ecosystem in the going in the time coming.
So, what are the five metrics uh, would you report monthly? Policy violations is one way of looking at privilege actions, exception rate, MTTDR or MTTD, recovery readiness. What should that monthly report look at, sir?
So I believe, if we talk about these five metrics, all these five metrics are important, because the policy violation is equally important. If we are not observing it, So we are increasing threat to our own ecosystem. Privileged AI actions, what kind of access identity we have given them, we have to monitor it. Which kind of agent, what activity they are doing, and what kind of access they are basically having. Because if there is something which is dangerous for confinement of business, dangerous for leakage of data, we need to take an action. Exception rates, how many time exception has been given? Is
Okay.
there a lot of exceptions are going? MTTD and MTTRs, right? The response time is very fast or very less.
Mm.
Is the system is recovery ready? So I believe all these five metrics are very, very important. I don't think any of this one I can miss out of it.
Got it. Now, coming to the same point, what question should the board ask to separate AI theater from real controls? Because AI has hundreds of agents, but real controls are policies, procedures, and stuff, right? So, how do we look at this separation, or how do we look these boards should be asking, sir?
So I remember if a person in the security, I say security, it can be border security, it can be, country security. The question he is going to ask, what AI can act without approval. So that is the most important thing, rather than what he can do. What he can do without approval is more important.
Okay.
What is the blast radius of the failure? If we fail, so what kind of impact we are going to get? Do we have evidence of control? So
Yeah.
I think these are the three very important questions which a board or leadership should know or ask.
Now, if a CA wants to look at 30 to 90 days
Yeah.
as a roadmap, what practical roadmap to adopt when you're looking at AI agentic security?
Actually, this is not a tech rollout, if I say. It is an
Okay.
operational shift. Because when you're bringing agentic ecosystem automation, you are trying to improvise the operational efficiency. You are trying to kill those mundane tasks. You are trying to bring something which is going to help the entire ecosystem.
Right.
So we should not think that we are bringing some net new tech or CIO is bringing some new tech. I believe we should feel, or it should be a joint responsibility of business as well as CIO to understand what kind of application or what kind of task you want to automate, because CIO cannot take that decision. In my understanding, this is business and the technology both have to take these decisions. So it is an operating model shift rather than a tech rollout.
Tech. Okay. Now, when we spoke about that, there has to be looking at some steps that are needed, or the first steps that we need to put in. So, what are the first steps that you want to put? Is it invent use cases, tire risk, implementation guardrails, plus approvals? What is that you're
I
looking at?
remember when we have set up the first governance board in the year 2023, end of year 2023, when we were implementing AI in one of my organization. So the first question which was asked by the board, you can say the chairman of the board, identify the high value use cases where you feel this will be a right fit.
Hmm.
And I believe that is the most important part. You cannot put AI anywhere, because every prompt used, there's a cost, and this is a every token used is a cost. If you will put anywhere or everywhere, it will explode your cost center like anything. Then the tier risk, like low to critical, where you're putting it is a low risk item or it is a critical risk item. Whether we should put a agent over here, we should not put a agent over here. I believe in a critical scenario, we may not be having an agent to do the complete automation, rather than just to give early signals of something is happening, rather than taking the complete control. Implementing the guardrails plus approval process. Again, human in loop, human on the loop. So those things, three things I believe, first three steps we should evaluate.
Yeah. So now, what is the maturity path from pilot to production to scale in regulated environments?
I feel um, like it is not like any other ecosystem, because when we do a POC and try to implement the application, I believe the maturity part should be pilot to control production,
Hmm.
where we see the effect. We should understand how it is performing, what kind of behavior it is giving, and then scaled autonomy with governance. Because if you are talking about regulatory industry, just imagine we are using a AI tool for drug discovery. How dangerous it can be if we move from pilot to direct production.
Yeah.
We need to have a control. We need to have the behavior pattern, and we need to see how it is going to create an impact.
So with this, I think what we are trying to say is provide a simple phased approach with outcomes, faster response, fewer incidents, lower OPEX, higher assurance, include change management is what we are saying. So with this, we are on the pointers that we had to discuss. And I would like to do a takeaway that I have taken from your pointers. Agentic AI shifts from cyber alerts to action, right? And so guardrails, approvals, and traceability becomes non-negotiable. So that's the first point that we are saying. Attackers will use AI for speed and scale. Defenders must respond with identity first controls and two layer governance. That's what you said when you said, right? Regulated industries must treat AI security as an evidence system, audit trail, validation, change control, and integrity. That's the point. Now you also spoke about some of the SOC pointers where winning SOC model is staged autonomy, assist, recommend, execute with grace.
Sorry.
That is what we said, and measured expansion is what we said. And the last pointer is board confidence comes from proof, measurable controls, reduced expectations, and improved response to recover readiness. That's the points that I had taken as takeaways, sir. Over the last 45 minutes that we spoke, any pointers that you have to before we close the session, sir?
So I believe uh, when we are implementing any automation into our ecosystem, it brings a lot of responsibility towards us as a technocrat. And any automation which adds value to the business is definitely required at this time and stage. But the kind of scale or the kind of speed it is happening, we need to understand, we need to take pause. As during any activity, even you're speaking to somebody, you're doing anything, the pauses are very, very good and very, very important. So I believe when we are getting a mandate to bring automation to the scale, bring new technology to the ecosystem, we should go back to the whiteboard. We should understand what we are doing, why we are doing, and how it is going to impact the organization. If it is not making a impact or it is not making a sense or outcome, I believe it is not bad to take 5 steps behind
Okay.
and give the right picture to the board, rather than you take the action into the pressure, and then we get into some problem or trouble, may not be reversible, and brings a problem not only to or bad name to you, it even to the ecosystem, even to the business. So everything needs to be evaluated well. Trust me, every vendor want to sell his product. I have seen in my career, I have been asking many times, when a vendor comes to me with a new tool, I ask him, what are the feature of this tool? What advantages you are bringing to me, and
Hmm.
what are the benefit it will bring to my organization? Without understanding these three parameters, I don't even like to evaluate that solution. When I understand these things, then I try to understand, is it making a sense for me to bring in the ecosystem? Because technology will come and go. Okay, it should not be a hype, it should not be a FOMO, it should actually make a impact to your organization. Thank you.
Sir, one comment has come where I will bring it up here. It
Right.
says in many organizations, adding agents everywhere may create more operational complexity and governance overhead than value. The hard part is deciding whether autonomy is actually justified. So this is a pointer from Anu, who's given this pointer. Any views on this, sir? Before,
No, Anup, you have added a very, very important part, because it is important how many agents, why we are adding. It requires, it is very important because we may be bringing agents today to understand there is going to be operational efficiency, but it can become a real overhead. So I have seen many organizations in the sheer pressure, not from the board side, from the partner side, from the vendor side, because he has to meet his target. He try to take a top down approach and try to sell his agents. Now, who is going to manage those agents? Who is going to monitor those agents? Who is going to create that guardrails? That becomes a challenge. So that's the reason the governance practices, guardrails needs to be defined before bringing in the agents. To bring one or 100, doesn't matter. But every agent should be very classified with the roles responsibility like any other employee in your organization.
thank you for that, sir. Thank you for bringing the regulated industry board ready lens to the topic, full of hype that we see, right? So the future cybersecurity landscape will be defined by one question: when AI can act, can you still prove controls? That's the point that we want to look at. The leaders who want to answer that with evidence, not opinion, will scale faster, safer, and bring more trust. Is what we want to say. So that's the point that we want to look at. We also look at the advisory support on securing AI adoption, governance, cyber resilience. So please talk to Sandeep. I'll bring up his QR here where you can connect to him and talk to him if there is anything that he has to look at, and
I
you
would
can
like to
connect to
add
Sandeep.
one point,
Yes.
Prem, before you close it.
Yeah.
Uh, we have been seeing a lot of tools, framework, architecture, design in our past. So we are working on regulatory industry frameworks, which are not only user centric, it is also AI centric. Because the framework, when you talk about the regulatory industry, say pharma or healthcare, you have around 36 domains with 200 capabilities
Hmm.
under it, and bringing tools at every capability is a real problem. That's the reason they are struggling. So many applications, so many domains. How to manage it? I was talking to one of the CIO. He says I'm managing 1,500 applications in my ecosystem. Just imagine the. So I would love to share sometime those frameworks, and trust me, those are going to simplify the load on you as well as the team.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. With this, we are on top of the hour, and we would like to conclude our session for the day. Looking forward to see you in the future episodes. Thank you, audience. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.